Thank you, Chair. I have a question regarding network resilience in the context of disaster response. As you know, the Longwood region of Victoria and the Murrindindi Shire burnt earlier this year. It was about 4 months ago, and I've had numerous conversations with constituents in that area, including a lot of farmers, and I've been there and I've met with the local council. And the testimony I heard is that the towers went down. There was a region-wide network outage. The Telstra employees came out and they couldn't access the manuals on their phones because there was no coverage. This obviously was a complete disaster for farmers. I mean, the testimony I've heard is just harrowing, to be honest, to the point where I have vicarious trauma listening to this, and I have to wonder how these people are actually upright after dealing what they did. I mean, we're talking about farmers who were unable to communicate in the heat of this crisis, and then in the aftermath, one farmer told me he had to bury 1,600 sheep. He could not get comms, so he had to find an excavator from a colleague, a friend. He then had to seek permission from the state agency, the Department of Environment, to get a permit in order to bury the sheep, the rotting carcasses. And of course, without communications, reliable communications, this was a nightmare. So for communities like this, I think it's very hard for people in the cities to appreciate what these people are going through in the heat of a battle like that. And bearing in mind that this fire was the largest loss of private property in Victoria's history, over 140,000 hectares burnt. So my questions to you are, will UOMO provide a level of redundancy when these kinds of events occur? And what is Telstra doing to harden its network in the interim until UOMO actually goes live?
Yeah, sure. I'll answer that. Thank you, Senator, for the question. I think Telstra, we invest considerable sums, and I think the figure is something like $4.7 billion over the last 7 years in regional Australia connectivity, because we understand how important it is for regional Australians, especially in times of disaster, to have that connectivity available to them. Of course, there are situations where our redundancy that we build into the network, and that's redundancy in our design of the network, redundancy in the services we provide, redundancy in power systems, including backup battery power and other things like that, are exhausted in extreme events, and where we aren't able to get restoration crews prioritised or safely into an area as quickly as we would like, and those impacts do happen. I would say, yes, UOMO does potentially provide the ability for additional redundancy in situations like that. We have seen that already in natural disasters that have happened since we've launched our satellite messaging service last June, where when in times of where our redundancy on our mobile network has exhausted and we haven't been able to get a repair crew in time, we have seen an increase in customers using the satellite messaging service in those areas. So we're seeing that redundancy and failover happening. So we're quite optimistic about the way technology is evolving and the investment that's going in, and we will intend to be leading in bringing that connectivity to Australians and that extra redundancy, particularly in regional areas that we care so much about.
I didn't also mention that the Major Incident Control Centre in Alexandra had to evacuate because of the network outage. They had to move to Seymour, which was an hour away, and it meant that they were again removed from the community that they were trying to protect, which complicated matters in that area. But can you assure us that you won't use UOMO as an excuse to not invest in the terrestrial network and to harden resilience?
So, Senator,
especially if it is pushed out beyond the proposed start date.
So, Senator, the way we see satellite to mobile services is we see them as complementary, not a substitute for the terrestrial mobile network. So the terrestrial mobile network will still carry the base load of traffic in this country, and it is critically important that we and the rest of industry continue to invest in the terrestrial network, and that is most definitely our intention.
Okay, that's reassuring. My final question, probably to your government relations person, is could you perhaps on notice find out for me whether Telstra has engaged with this specific community, with the council, with the first responder teams in the Longwood region, and with the farmers in this community? The reason I ask is that this particular community has had cumulative impacts. So in 2002, they flooded again because they're near Lake Eildon, water was released. They've then had this Longwood fire. I had one farmer lose 6 properties. I mean, he actually had 6 properties because he wanted to hedge his bets. He lost all of them. I had one first responder lose his own house while fighting someone else's, protecting someone else's house. And, I think, and now, of course, they're dealing with the fuel and fertiliser crisis. It's almost too much to bear. It is almost too much to bear. And yet this community is part of a $19 billion industry, at least in Victoria, and part of a $100 billion agricultural industry that creates jobs and revenue for this country. So I'd just like to know on notice whether Telstra has engaged directly with this community.
Thanks for your question, Senator. We do have our Regional Australia team who were active and on the ground and engaging with our, with the community and local councils. And it's remiss of me to say our thoughts are absolutely with everyone impacted by that particular event in January this year. It was very challenging, and it was such a large-scale event, and we certainly were across the fires themselves. But certainly, during times of disasters, that's where we see the best in our people, where our Regional Australia team are out there on the ground, talking to customers, issuing disaster assistance packages, also participating in community meetings and so on. But certainly we can take that question on notice and provide the committee with that detail. Thank you.
My final plea would be to re-engage with this community. There's a lot that's coming out now 4 months after the event, and I think they would appreciate it, as would I.